there another microphone that we might use for when we bring in the audience? Is there another microphone?
Thank you. Remember, my biggest issue is in order to solve a problem, you have to identify it. So if we identify the problem, it's half solved already. And I was identifying the three things that keep people from being able to solve this, which is, number one, problem-solving skills in general. Number two, groupthink. People are very vulnerable to wanting to blend in with the peer pressure. And the third thing is the implications, and that causes people to be afraid. But if you understand how to solve a problem, you don't have fear of the unknown. You have some sort of control of your environment. By being able to control your environment, what's the reason to be fearful? Also, in understanding what happened that day and knowing what our eyes actually saw, not what we were told to see. Mm-hmm. We were told to see this horror scene and whatever interpretation you want to put with it. But once we erase that and replace it with what actually we were seeing, what we were seeing was a demonstration of free energy. That we don't have to go to somebody's lab or take somebody's word for it or trust and say, well, he's bogus, he's not bogus, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. The whole world saw it. And if the whole world can see it in front of them, we don't have to worry about developing it in the secrecy of our basement and getting suicided. We can do it in broad daylight.
That's great.
Well, I'm going to change the subject. There's something that I think many people don't realize about 9/11. It wasn't just like a car wreck that happened 10 years ago where the wrong party was issued the traffic ticket. You know, not the wrong party did it. It was a pretty big event. It was an attack on human consciousness. People seem to lose the ability to think. Think of how many people were easily fooled that day. Why were they fooled that day? We need to sort that out, because it's a big change that has happened because of that, and need to reestablish who we are, because we've been pulled off track quite a distance. And like, as I casually say, we become like trained lab rats, just going wherever the cheese goes, rather than taking control of our destiny and figuring out who we are and why we think the way we think, what are our goals, where do we want to go. And we have all the tools we need. We just need to open the eyes and see them. Well, I have a name for it, but it doesn't represent totally what it is. It's magnetic electrogravitic nuclear reactions.
Can you give us an acronym?
I'm not interested in buzzwords. It's so important for us to know what it does more than to have a name for it. And I can tell you, size, shape, width, whatever details about it and what it can do and what it causes it and how to reproduce it. But a name for it doesn't, because so many people like to throw around acronyms and they have no idea what it means, and pretty soon it becomes this game of name dropping and nobody knows what they're doing again. So that's why I was very disciplined in stopping where we stopped rather than getting through the whole thing or jumping and skipping parts, because it's so important to have the groundwork so that we each individually and each of you can know for yourself what happened instead of taking my word for it. I don't want you to take my word for it or anybody's word for it. To each one of us think.
Yes.
It's about my case. It's no longer alive. The lower courts denied it. Okay, the case was about science fraud by NIST. NIST presented a report, and their contractors, so we can't sue the government or government agency, but we can sue contractors who commit fraud. For example, Underwriter's Lab made some mock-ups of the floor, of one entire floor, 2 full-scale, 2 half-scale, set them on fire for twice as long, for twice the temperature, and none of them failed to support a load. Yet, they signed off on a report saying fire did it, where what they demonstrated was the opposite, and it goes on and on. One thing interesting, too, another one of the contractors, number 1 on my list, are developers and manufacturers of energy weapons. They helped do the NIST report. Interesting. And if the case had gone forward, they also have a contract with the government to know everything about any weapon of mass destruction that has been developed or is being developed anywhere. So not only do they know what technology it is, they probably know whose technology it is. And they would be put under oath. Case couldn't go forward. Well, the lower court judge dismissed it, saying he wasn't going to hear a case about who shot JFK or what landed on the moon. That isn't what this case was about. Maybe he misunderstood. We appealed to the Court of Appeals, and they were very respectful of me. They acknowledged that the law applied to this case, but they were ignoring the law to dismiss the case. And the Supreme Court, of course, didn't have an issue with that. And if the case had had more support from the public, they couldn't get away with that. You know, it was sweeping under the carpet. But they could in this case. But they were at least respectful of me. They didn't have to make that statement. They actually stated that in the written statement. They were ignoring the law. Dismiss the case. So it's rather too bad, because it was probably the only shot we citizens had in this. And it was the one avenue, and the lawyer who helped me with this case was brilliant to discover that avenue. And how it worked was the Data Quality Act. If it's a government agency, it has to put out truthful data. And that report was fraudulent.
That's correct. That is correct.
Very interesting.
Thank you, Dr. Wood.
Got it.
Just a quick comment. What Dr. Judy Wood was talking about, what destroyed, it's implied that what destroyed the Twin Towers was some kind of gravitonics beam, like the Russian 100-megawatt beam, Podkletnov's beam that does not attenuate with distance. It's based on shock discharges from Van de Graaff's and that sort of thing. But the literature is out there. The way things just powdered points to a scalar beam, electrogravitational beam.
I think you want to respond to that, because I don't think she agrees with that.
It's interesting. I often get people speaking for me and don't often get to respond to that. What I am just, yes, I am just stating what is there and showing what is there and what we know, because anything beyond that, we start making assumptions to fit. And if it is something we've never seen before, you know, if you're busy fitting it into a known that you're familiar with, you're wrong. You know, that's how you get off track. What we do know is we've never seen before a building turn to dust in midair. So something that can cause that exists. A technology that can cause that exists. We know that much. And it's very important. It's really tough sometimes to stay disciplined, to know what you know and know that the rest you don't know. And to draw that line and not mix the two. Because someone recently told me this phrase, and I think it's excellent. When you find yourself walking down the garden path, leave the garden. Because you can be led astray easily, but it's important to know what you do know. And so we can see, like, there's a hurricane there. I know what hurricanes do. They produce static fields, this, that, and the other. But beyond that, we don't know exactly, you know, what was, and we know it was, they didn't announce it. It was, you saw how many other reporters were unaware of it. But stating what exactly is used for. And a lot of folks misrepresent my work, saying that like the extension cord for the gizmo was plugged into the hurricane, and that it powered it, the ray beam from outer space. You know, I've never said anything about a ray beam from outer space. What I mean by directed energy weapon is energy that's directed in some way and used as a weapon. It's not a kinetic energy weapon. So it leaves a very wide range of things. And nothing physically touched the building. Nothing hit it that caused this dustification to occur. And energy was directed to do something differently than it normally does. And I think it's important to study this because, hey, we can copy the design. Think of how, this technology can provide free energy. So it can also be used for good. And if we all grow up, this is an important thing, if we all grow up respectful of this technology, it's a lot safer.
Thanks so much.
This fear of it being weaponized, hey, been there, done that, no fear. It's already been done. So we no longer have the need to be afraid of that.